Something big is happening in the global economy right now. It's splitting right down the middle. We're seeing two totally different futures taking shape. One with incredible wealth creation, and another that's just a repeating cycle of crisis. What's separating the winners from the losers? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into today. This quote, it just nails the whole situation, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the puzzle we're unpacking. So what is the secret sauce for the economies that are just taking off? And on the flip side, what are the traps that keep other countries stuck, seemingly always in trouble? So let's dig into the playbooks. We're going to look at the countries that are really breaking away from the pack and see what they're doing right. Then we'll compare that to the ones struggling just to stay afloat. And you know what? Some of the answers might actually surprise you. Okay, first things first. When we say a country is getting rich, what do we even mean by that today? Because let me tell you, it's not what it used to be. We need to establish the new rules for what success looks like. And here is the absolute key. This isn't about just getting lucky and striking oil or mining a bunch of minerals. No, we're looking for something way more durable. Economies that are building real, sustainable engines for growth that will last long into the future. All right, so with that new definition in our heads, let's meet the rising stars. We've got 5 countries here that are absolutely nailing these new rules of wealth creation, and what's so interesting is that each one is doing it with its own unique strategy. First up, we've got Vietnam. Their whole strategy is about making themselves an essential, can't live without it part of the global manufacturing machine. They've created this thing we can call an FDI flywheel. They attract foreign investment, which fuels growth, which then, you guessed it, attracts even more investment. It just keeps spinning faster and faster. And the momentum? It's staggering. A nearly 50% jump in investment approvals in just 1 month. This is that China plus one strategy playing out in real time, where big companies are looking for a second manufacturing base outside of China. And Vietnam, with its smart policies and skilled people, is perfectly positioned to catch that wave. Next, let's look at Poland, which gives us a total masterclass in a completely different strategy: smart regional integration. By plugging itself into the European Union's massive single market, Poland has completely re-engineered its economy over the last 20 years. And the results are just incredible. I mean, look at this. Back when Poland joined the EU in 2004, its wealth per person was only about half of the European average. Today, it's up to 80% and it's still climbing. They've actually overtaken countries like Greece. That is one heck of a success story. Okay, now for Indonesia. They're taking a much bolder, more aggressive approach. They used to just export the raw nickel ore. Not anymore. They actually banned those exports to force companies to build the refineries and the battery plants right there, in Indonesia. It's a really high-stakes bet to grab a bigger piece of the green energy pie. And this is their ultimate goal. You see where they're going with this, right? Indonesia doesn't just want to be a supplier. It wants to control the global nickel market, kind of like how OPEC controls oil. And since nickel is absolutely essential for electric vehicle batteries, that could give them some serious power in the years to come. Speaking of power plays, let's talk about a country trying to pull off one of the biggest economic pivots in modern history: Saudi Arabia. They know the oil money won't last forever, so with their Vision 2030 plan, they're pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into everything from tourism and entertainment to building futuristic cities from scratch. So, the big question is this crazy ambitious plan actually working? Well, the numbers say, yeah, it is. For the first time pretty much ever, about half of the government's income is now coming from things other than oil. This proves their diversification plan is becoming a reality, not just a fancy slogan. And finally, we have the country that you could argue literally wrote the modern playbook on diversification, the UAE. It has successfully transformed itself into a global crossroads for finance, tourism, and logistics, creating this booming, service-based economy that just keeps attracting talent and money from all over the world. Okay, so before we check out the other side of this story, let's just hit pause. This table really sums it up. You have 2 completely different playbooks. On one side, you have these proactive, forward-looking strategies, attracting investment, diversifying, adding value. And on the other, you have these reactive moves, relying on bailouts and just constantly dealing with instability. So now we turn to the other side of the divide, to the countries that are caught in a much, much tougher situation. Here, economies are facing immense pressure from crushing debt, crazy high inflation, and slow growth, forcing them to make some incredibly painful choices. Let's look at Argentina and Egypt, because their stories are strikingly similar. Both have been locked in this difficult relationship with the IMF, the world's emergency lender, and are trying to fix their economies with painful reforms. And even when inflation starts to come down, the recovery for ordinary people is slow, and the whole situation just feels incredibly fragile. And this reveals this vicious cycle that traps so many countries, from Pakistan to Ghana. It starts with some economic instability, that leads to a currency crisis. Then they're forced to get a lifeline from the IMF, which in turn demands these really tough, unpopular reforms. And breaking out of that cycle is the central challenge. It is so hard to do. But if you want a truly stark picture of what happens when things go horribly wrong, just look at Lebanon. This isn't a cycle, it's a catastrophic collapse. In just a handful of years, the economy has shrunk by an almost unbelievable 40%. Savings were wiped out, the banking sector was destroyed. It's a devastating cautionary tale. So, after looking at these two starkly different realities, you've got the rising stars on one hand and the struggling economies on the other. What is the ultimate lesson here? What's the one thing that truly separates these two groups? It really boils down to this powerful idea. In the long run, it's not about how much oil you have in the ground. It's about the strength of your institutions. Things like the rule of law, a clear economic strategy, and stable government. That stuff is far more valuable than just getting lucky with resources. It is the ultimate differentiator. And that leaves us with this final question. As we look ahead, which path will define the next decade? Will more countries adopt the playbook of diversification and smart investment? Or will that cycle of debt and crisis pull more nations under? The path that ends up dominating is going to shape the entire global economy for years to come.